things where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. And it's a beautiful day for the Pirate broadcast, and welcome. All the gratitude in the world for you being here. If you're listening to this in the future on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, just like and subscribe. Do that social thing that makes it easy for us to keep going. And today we have in the house Pirate Sam. Sam, good morning, and how are you doing today?
Good morning, Pirate Russ. Permission to come aboard?
Absolutely, come aboard. Let's go for a ride. Set sail, and we'll do something shenanigans out there. Look for some treasure.
All righty.
So, Sam, I wanted to talk to you. You know, you're the conscious consultant, and I know that covers a lot of ground. But I know you have years of experience. You've been around a few days here and there, doing a few things like that. So, what is driving you and making you excited today in this day and age right now?
What is making me excited today? Oh, geez, yeah. There is just so much. For me, I'm really concerned about the core and the essence of things, not necessarily as much as the outer stuff. And what I see still over and over again is people are waking up to what's really important in their life, because in a way, the silver lining behind all this craziness around us is it's stripped away sort of all this superficial stuff.
Yeah.
And now we get to see, because we, don't have opportunities to go to restaurants and movie theaters and nightclubs and all this stuff. Well, what's really important? And people are waking up to the fact that, like, connection, family, friends, our own personal work, our physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual health, and how important all of these core values are. Like, it's so in our face these days. Now, not everybody is having an easy time of it, but to me, it just feels like more and more people are learning to value things of more an intrinsic nature than of a superficial nature. And to me, that's golden.
That is golden. And I know we were talking before the show about how, precious our time is, and, how things are changing and evolving. And I just really believe that, for myself, and this is just myself, this has not been the worst year of my life. This has not been tragic. And, I did lose my dad this year. Which was, part of, life. And I'm very fortunate that I was here with him and able to experience a few years with him, his last years. And also, I think it really nailed it on the head with we have to think about what is important in our lives. We have to think about what is critical and really necessary, not what is, the big, I want, more stuff. I want more time. I want to make the time I have an impact. I want to make it matter. And I think that's really part of, why, these kind of conversations are so important these days, because, if you watch the news, it's not necessarily, it's like, this is the hit. We're falling apart. It's tragic. Everything's bad. And when you talk to people, it's not necessarily the same story. So you have to wonder how much of an impact is it? How much are we really knowing? What are we hearing, and what are we doing about it? So I know you've been helping a lot of business owners in the past, and you continue to do so. What are the challenges and the conversations that you're having? What are the big challenges right now with people that you talk to?
Well, and similar to you, I've actually, my business has grown quite a bit this year. And because I run an internet radio station and a live podcasting network, people are recognizing the value of being sort of out there and getting their message out online the same way you do, with your show. So for me, it's been very good. And I've spoken to a number of business owners, and it's really so industry specific
Yeah.
that certain industries are like doing amazingly well. Transportation, anything to do with stuff online, healthcare, technology, all these industries. If you're in those industries, you're great.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of industries that are not doing well. Anything in hospitality, travel, entertainment, all these things that now are really shifting.
Mm-hmm.
And so the conversations I tend to have with people are about helping them to see that they're not powerless in the situation, and that actually if they can open up their mind and be creative and see a different perspective and see where there is opportunity, even though, yeah, I mean, pivoting your business is not so easy. If you're really attached to the way you've been doing business for the last 10 years, you're going to have a really hard time moving forward. But if you can just be present to the truth of what is here today and recognize, like, hey, there's some opportunities here. If you can be different, that then you can transform your business into a better way. Like, I know people who they're let's say speakers and trainers, and they're used to working in person and speaking in front of large groups. And now they can't do that at all. Now they're
Yeah.
doing everything virtually, but they say, oh my God, I'm like saving so much time by not having to travel. I'm able to spend time at home with my family and still
Yeah.
get all the work done.
Yeah.
And so slowly people are waking up to some of the good things about this. Again, I'm a people person. I love giving hugs and being in people's presence. So
Yeah.
I want to be with people. And at the same time, I do recognize the value of being able to work virtually. I mean, look, we're across the country. I
Yeah.
mean, people around the world could be hearing us. I mean, we can have a greater impact with our voice, with our message, with what we can offer people, because everybody is online now, because we've been thrown into the deep end of the pool, so to speak.
It's amazing, and you bring up a couple of key points that I want to unpack, because for myself, I've been, teaching podcasting and broadcasting, and I grew up in an advertising, environment. And the technology that we have right now allows us, whether it be through your phone or a podcast or a live stream like this, we have the opportunity to make these connections. And it's so amazing to me that we can pick up a phone and broadcast to the world.
Yeah.
And coming from a broadcasting background where it took engineers and it took circuits and services and a truck and a satellite dish and everything else, it took so many people not so long ago to make a connection like that, and to understand what it takes and what it is now, to imagine what it will be in the future, is an amazing push. And I think if we don't think about how we're going to change and evolve and be resilient, I think that's when people get stuck, is they don't know how to change. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do next. Entrepreneurs are fairly good at thinking through challenges and problems and resolving these things and moving on and making adjustments along the way. And sometimes it takes someone like yourself or, other consultants that are out there seeing the future. We were talking about the future, and Adam, what was Toffler?
Alvin Toffler, yeah, the
Alvin
third wave.
Toffler,
Yep.
and there's some things to look forward to, but when you're in it, it doesn't feel like it's as comfortable. Change is not necessarily the first thing people do in their life to
So
see.
one thing I'd love to clarify, and that is that it's not always about knowing what to do next. We tend to be a little bit too caught up with the what do I do next, as opposed to just being present with what is here today.
True story.
We have a tendency to focus too much on the past, or we worry about the future, and it takes us out of presence. It takes us out of where we are here today.
Yeah.
And when we're present to what's here today, life will sort of naturally give us the indications, the signs of where to go, what to follow. If you had told me 15, 20 years ago what I'd be doing today, I'd think you're nuts, you're crazy, like get away from me. But you're absolutely right. Like the technology, the way things have developed, it's almost mind blowing. I remember I one time gave a talk in front of it was at a science fiction convention here in New York City, a Star Trek convention, on behalf of the local chapter of the National Space Society, talking about how the future is here today. And now I look back on that talk and it's like even more true. Like I was, little hard floppy disk was like the little thing Spock used to stick into the console. Now today, our phones are communicators. I mean, it's incredible how it doesn't necessarily show up exactly the same way, but the technology is moving towards where these visionaries, and I love science fiction. I'm a nerd. Okay. I was a nerd as a kid, but I can take my pulse with my phone.
Yeah.
Think about that. If you have a smartphone that has the right kind of, you can know what your pulse is. I think it may also even be not necessarily blood pressure, but there's one or two other things too. But I mean, that's mind blowing. How long before our phone can tell us how healthy we are, our blood sugar levels, this and that, all these things. It won't be that long.
No.
So, and these advances tend to be disruptive, and they disrupt whole industries. And when there's a disruption of a whole industry, there's a great number of people displaced because they're used to working to the way things were. But when there's a big disruption, there's also great opportunity.
Yeah.
Both exist at the exact same time. And so it's up to us to shift our perspective to see how is life happening for us and not to us.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Everyday Awakening. It is to really help people to see that life does happen for us. And that merely by shifting our perspective and by being more present to what is and understanding that our real power is what's inside of us, not what's on the outside of us, that then we can meet any challenge that comes our way, and that we can take advantage of these opportunities, and we can thrive where other people are struggling.
Yeah. And in your book, and I want to go into it a little bit deeper, but and like you said, in the moment, there are elements, we've seen an explosion in remote medicine, having been able to have more people get comfortable with Zoom sessions, the ability to do remote teaching, and have the idea of, they can use a Zoom session, or they can use, Microsoft Teams or whatever platform it happens to be. There is an element of excitement about that. And at the same time, I still think as humans, we need, there's something to be said about the physical contact, the interaction, like you said, hey, I'm a hugger, it's like, I want to go up and say hi to people. I want the physical touch. I want to look them in the eye and know that I'm having a good conversation with somebody, and it's heartfelt and everything else. And like Howard Kaufman says, growing concern that relying just on Zooming will increase isolation, out of balance. Seeing this with my daughter too, finishing her senior year in college, but not being able to physically present has had a detrimental impact. And I know that you and I are, we're people, and there is something to be said about the physical event and having people in the same room that is never going to replace, or never going to be replaced on a Zoom session.
Absolutely. And what I'm finding a lot of people are saying is look, things are never going back to the way they were before. However, we're going more towards like a hybrid model where we'll be both in person and Zoom. And I agree. And being on Zoom all day long, every day of the week I am, it can be fatiguing.
Yeah.
And I want to be around people too. And at the same time, we do have to be considerate of what's going on and not be reckless,
Yeah.
which means like, okay, you want to see a friend, that's fine. Have you been relatively isolated? Have they been relatively isolated?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. You want to get together, or you just social distance, or, I live right near Central Park in Manhattan. So I
Yeah.
love to meet people in the park and go for a walk, keep to it outdoors. I mean, now it's a little cold. But there are ways of doing it. And it's again, we're feeling kind of fatigued because we've had to deal with it for a
Yeah.
little while. I mean, us as adults, we're dealing with things also very differently than the kids. And to me, my heart really goes out to people, like he was talking about his daughter, who are like graduating elementary school, junior high school, and they can't have the graduation parties and have their friends over. Oh my God. Because those are, events that, you're never going to repeat again in your life. I
Yeah.
mean, us as adults, okay, we put things off a year, 2 years, and then eventually we get back together. I have a cousin who they were supposed to get married in May of this year, and then they pushed it off to August, and then they had to push it off again, and then they ended up doing just a little private ceremony for immediate family, and then next summer maybe they'll do a get together for everyone. As adults, it's like, what's the big deal? We can wait a year to have a party. It's not worth taking the chance, and it's
Mhm.
not always about you getting something from someone else, but there are a lot of people out there with no symptoms who can spread this virus, and it's I know for me personally, I don't want to be responsible for making someone else sick.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't want to bring together a big group of people where just even one person without symptoms could infect everybody. And because I organized it, I'd really be responsible for several people getting sick. And even they didn't get sick, but then maybe they live with their parents, or maybe they go to see
Right.
their elderly parents and they transmit it to them. And then we know what happens to it. And
Yeah.
and so it's really about being thoughtful of other people
Yeah.
and being thoughtful of our place as part of the whole. This it's not about giving up our individual sovereignty. I want people to just be a little more heart-centered, to care a little bit more about themselves first and then other people. Because just think, how would you feel if you were the one responsible for somebody else catching this horrible thing and then potentially passing away from it? I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but I think most people would feel horrible about it. So
Well,
why
I'm a
wouldn't we
caregiver.
try and prevent that?
I'm a caregiver for my mother. She's a high risk individual that the last thing I want to do is go out in public and, and, not be smart about it. We still have to get groceries or pick up things, and, there's limited exposure. However, the last thing I'm going to do is create a networking event that, that exacerbates the situation and makes it even worse, and take risks that we don't necessarily need to take. And
Mm.
it's difficult to have that, for a fifth grader or third grader or somebody, that doesn't understand all of these elements of, why do I have to do that? Why, mom? It's like, and it's really a challenging time. And I don't want to dismiss or diminish any of those elements, because it's so important for us to understand that this is a place in history that will be part of history, and how we get through it, how we help each other get through it, and how we move forward is going to really impact what it is that we do as a humanity on the other side. And I think that's what we have to think about also, is what do we want this to look like on the other side? So I
Right.
know
And
you
what you just said is really key. It's how do we get through this together?
yeah.
And this, to me, I feel is one of the biggest lessons. It's to really move forward in the best way possible. We have to come together as a community, as a people, as a neighborhood,
Uh-huh.
to really come together, to work together to solve a problem. And to me, I personally do not think this is the last of global challenges that we're going to be facing in our lifetime. I
No.
think this is just the first, and
Yeah.
that there will be other things that, and I don't know what they are. I mean, you can make some guesses, like there's going to be some ecological problems for sure, and potentially other kinds of challenges, that the way we're going to get through them and survive in the most beneficial way is by coming together, by working together, by not being divided. This is the thing that concerns me more than anything else about what I see, is the division in
Yeah.
the world today. And it's almost like people are living in two completely different realities side by side, yet two people could be experiencing things completely differently and believe things completely differently, yet they live next to each other. And that,
Yeah.
to me, is crazy, because if we come together, that's where we have our strength. That's where we can really find those creative solutions and find ways of really working together and doing things that's going to help us to get through this and really thrive on the other side of this.
I couldn't agree more, Sam. I couldn't agree more. Is that what prompted you to write your book? I want to go back before we.
Sure.
I want to talk about your book. I want to talk about what prompted Sam to sit down and write a book. What was the trigger in your mind that said, I want to go through this pain to write this book? Because it's either you have a voice and you have a message that cannot be held back, or there's a driver for that. And I kind of, and what we're talking about has impacted a lot of people and motivated them to do things that they wouldn't normally do. So is that something that prompted you, or is there other motivations that?
Well, the thing is that this book, Everyday Awakening, is not something I sat down and wrote in the last 6 months. It actually, I've been writing it for the last 6.5 years since I started writing my blog.
Okay.
And I started writing my blog just because I needed content for my newsletter, and I wanted to post something. And I follow Seth Godin, who's a wonderful marketeer, and he was about like writing a blog every single day. And I'm like, no, I can do just once a week, once or twice a week. I can. But then over time, what happened was a lot of, and what I would use my blog for is just kind of as part of my process to just be present of what was going on in my life and what was the lesson in it. What did I get out of it? So I didn't necessarily get into the personal stories of what I was going through, but more what was the experience, and what did I learn? What was the insight I got from it? What was the perspective I developed from it? And what happened was, over time, people started responding to me saying, "Oh my God, Sam, I so needed to hear your blog, read what your blog said today."
Yeah.
And then I have a neighbor who's a PR woman, and she like would send it out to her list sometimes, and she would be on my case. And for the last 2 years, she's like, "Oh, you got to publish this. These are so good. You got to put it in a book." And so I had a different idea I had been working on for my first book, which ended up getting sidelined. And then I decided, like, this year, I really wanted to come out with a book, but it wasn't until the lockdown happened in March. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to live in fear. This is a time for me to invest in myself and invest in something that's really going to support people. And so I hired a professional editor to work with me on the manuscript and pull out the best of the blog posts and organize it, tighten everything up. And I actually wasn't even quite sure how good this was and whether there was some real value with it until I had sent the manuscript out to a few people and asked them for a testimonial around it. And some of the people were like, people have been in the personal development and transformational space for decades. And they got back to me and said, "Oh my God, I was reading it until 2 o'clock in the morning. It was wonderful. This is great. I really loved it. Here's my testimonial." And I was very taken aback by it. And I was like, "Oh, wow." So like there is some real value here. And the reviews I've been getting on Amazon and the feedback I've been getting has been so positive that I realized like there is some really good stuff in here to support people at this time. So I really want to get this out there and just get it into as many hands as possible.
Well, we'll share it with all the pirates and make sure that the community is aware that it's some information that needs to be out there. needs to be consumed and enjoyed as much as possible. So I just want
Thank
to give
you,
a
Russ.
shout out to Silver Fox DJ Darlene. Good morning, Russ. Nice to meet you, Sam. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. So Steven's here. The only future happens in the presence. So, and Marissa says, "Hi, Sam. Consciousness is something I'm into at this moment. I'd love to chat with you for my book conversation series." Love
Love
that.
to,
Yes,
Marissa. Thank you so
absolutely.
much.
Make those connections. Make those connections. And before we get off, and I know I could probably talk about this a long time, I want to talk about what you're doing every day, with the podcasting and the network and some of the things that are going on in that arena and what's developing. Podcasting is something I've been involved in since 2014. It's like I used to teach it, edit, and create lots of podcasts for different people and radio shows as well. And it's an industry that I'm kind of partial to. So it's like,
Yeah,
I
I
love
love
what
it.
you're doing. So I'd love to touch base on that before, just so people get a sense of what you're up to.
Sure. So every week I do my own show, and we're a live podcasting network, which means we're kind of more like an internet radio station,
Uh-huh.
and it's talkradio.nyc. That's the
Okay.
whole website address. And we've actually grown a lot. We have a lot of shows, and our brand for the network overall is about inspiring, educating, empowering, and uplifting people. And my show is called, oddly enough, the Conscious Consultant Hour. And I do my show live every Thursday from 12 noon Eastern Time to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That would be, what was that, 9 to 10 Pacific time. And I bring on all kinds of thought leaders and authors and speakers, healers, teachers, and even all kinds of people to raise awareness in different aspects of life. As a matter of fact, I just had, I was so thrilled. I had Dr. John D. Martini, who was in The Secret, on my show last week. So that was wonderful. Yeah. But there are other shows on the network too. We have a show that's a history of New York neighborhoods. We have shows on business, entrepreneurship, leadership, employment, spiritual, personal development, all kinds of things. And we have new shows coming on board. We actually have a show coming on that's going to be dealing with the topic of suicide, which is a very important topic because it touches many, many lives. So I hope if people go to talkradio.nyc, the schedule is there, the shows are there, there are archives there as well, so the recordings, and we also stream it live onto Facebook. So that it takes a lot of my time these days because so many people are interested in it now, and it's a wonderful way of getting your message out. And I love the fact that we do our shows live because, sort of similar to you, it's like as people make comments and post about things, we can interact. And I have loyal listeners who listen to me every week, and I can always see, there's William, there's Patty, there's Sanaya, and I always give them a shout out. So I hope people will tune in.
Hyatt's here. Gabriel's here. What up, gentlemen? Yeah. And Hyatt's in the house. And it's really about community. It's really about pulling together an idea and enjoying conversation just like this. And it's a little different than podcasting, where you take it and edit it and produce it and put it out there. However, I like the live stream aspect because you never know where the conversation is going to go. You never know what guest is going to be bringing those nuggets of knowledge to the table and having some interesting conversation. So I really appreciate the fact that you joined me, and we'll go check it out. And also, how do people get a hold of you? What's your favorite way of having people reach out to you and connect with Sam? Let him know that you're a pirate and you want to connect. So absolutely.
Best way is through my website, which is theconsciousconsultant.com. And there's a little contact form there. My email address is sam@theconsciousconsultant.com. So just reach out to me. If you want to connect to me, you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, LinkedIn, all over the place. So I'm not just search for me or search for the Conscious Consultant. You'll find me pretty easily.
Yeah. Get off my LinkedIn. Silver Fox, all on point and sharing perspectives, opening up new worlds. Well, Sam, it's a pleasure. I would love to learn more about what you're doing and some of the things that you have going on, and highlighting and sharing you as much as possible. The pirate broadcast and the pirate community is one that's, based on kindness and generosity and all of the things that are positive in the world. So all the gratitude for you being here today, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Russ. I really appreciate you. And to all my fellow pirates out there, aye, mateys, kindness is very cool.
Yes. And as always, like Sam said, kindness is cool. Smiles are free. And you enjoy the day. Till next time. Subscribe on my YouTube channel. I'm trying to build my YouTube channel. I'm building my YouTube channel. I'm not trying, right, Sam?
Right.
Perfect. Enjoy the day, everyone. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.